October in Boston always starts the same way. Cold wind blows along the Charles River. The leaves in Harvard Yard turn red. The whole campus moves quietly, like nothing is wrong. Eden Mercer thought that fall would start the same way too. Second year at Harvard Law School. 25 years old. He won the Best Student Award at the mock trial 2 times in a row. After graduation, a big New York law firm already offered him an internship. His professors said he was the kind of mind that comes along maybe once in 10 years. Eden took those words calmly. He didn't act proud. He didn't act humble. He just did what he had to do. That was all. His father, Richard Mercer, was a well-known lawyer in Boston. He worked in corporate law. His client list included banks, real estate companies, and financial firms. A 3-floor office on Western Avenue. A house in Beacon Hill. A family trip to Cape Cod every summer. To Eden, his father was always the same kind of man. Strong, quiet, and steady. When Eden was young, he once asked his father a question. "Why did you become a lawyer?" Richard thought for a moment, then said, "Law is the language of the powerful. The person who learns that language first wins." Eden wrote that down in his notebook. That one sentence was part of why he went to law school. Thursday night, October 14th, 11:30 p.m. Eden was in the library reading a contract law casebook. Fluorescent lights above him. An empty coffee cup. An open laptop. A book full of highlighter marks. Then his phone rang. It was an unknown number. He answered. "Is this Eden Mercer? I'm Detective Connolly from the Boston Police Department. Can you talk right now?" Eden didn't look up from his book. "Yes, go ahead." "Your father, Richard Mercer, was found tonight near the South Boston Harbor. He has passed away." The noise in the library seemed to stop for a second. The hand holding the highlighter stopped too. Eden said nothing. The detective kept talking. "Gunshot wounds. Near a warehouse. Looks like a robbery. Investigation is ongoing. Can you come quickly?" Eden hung up and put his phone on the table. He sat there for a moment. The words in the casebook didn't come to him anymore. He felt nothing. It wasn't because the news hadn't hit him yet. Eden was just that kind of person. His feelings came slowly. The shock came first. The sadness came later. He took a taxi to South Boston. Near the harbor, in front of a warehouse, there were 3 police cars and a forensics vehicle. Yellow tape blocked the entrance. Detective Connolly was a man in his 50s. His tie was loose. He met Eden and quickly explained the situation. Around 9 p.m., someone called to report hearing a gunshot. A patrol car came and found Richard Mercer inside the warehouse. 2 gunshot wounds. Time of death estimated between 8 and 9 p.m. His wallet and watch were gone, so it looks like a robbery. Eden nodded and asked, "Did my father have an office or any connection near here?" "Not that we know of." Eden looked at the warehouse beyond the tape. Why was his father here? South Boston Harbor. There was no reason for Richard Mercer to be here. His office was downtown. His home was in Beacon Hill. There was no connection between this warehouse and his father. Eden did not say that to the detective. He called his mother, Carolyn. At first she said nothing. Then, in a low, broken voice, she asked, "What happened?" Eden explained as calmly as he could. His mother cried quietly on the other end of the phone. He told her he would come soon and hung up. Before going home, Eden did one more thing. He slowly walked around the warehouse. He was careful so the detective wouldn't notice. He checked the alley beside the warehouse. A pile of broken wood. Near the emergency exit. Then, at the end of the alley under a drain pipe, he found something. He didn't touch it with his foot. He bent down and looked closely. It was an old business card. It was wet from the rain, and the words were blurry, but he could read one line. Irish Club. And a phone number. Eden put it in his pocket. The funeral was 3 days later. A church in Beacon Hill. More people came than expected. People from the legal world, businessmen, old college friends. Eden stood next to his mother and shook hands with each person. Thank you. Thank you for coming. He repeated it like a machine, but his eyes kept moving. He was looking for an unfamiliar face. And he found one. At the very back of the crowd. A man in a black coat. Mid-40s. Wide shoulders. Short gray hair. Thick features, like an Irish man. He bowed his head briefly in front of the coffin, then tried to quietly leave. Eden grabbed his arm. The man turned around. His eyes were steady. How did you know my father? The man looked at Eden for a moment. Then he said in a low voice, Sean Doherty. Richard and I go way back. I'm very sorry for your loss. Then he turned to leave. Eden asked again, what was your relationship with him? Doherty stopped. He didn't turn around. He said, if you want to know what your father was doing, don't look into it alone. Then he walked out the door. That night, Eden came back to the house in Beacon Hill. His mother had taken a sedative and was asleep. Eden went into his father's study. Everything looked normal. Law books, a framed family photo, an oak desk. Eden opened each desk drawer. Nothing. It was too clean for his father's desk. He ran his hand under the desk, and he found it. A thin groove. He put his finger in and pulled. A panel opened. It was a metal drawer with a double lock. Eden looked through his father's belongings for a small key. It was on the car key ring. A small key no one knew the purpose of. The drawer opened. Inside was a bundle of documents. Contracts. Names. Numbers. A chart showing money flows. Eden turned the pages and read. Slowly. Without missing anything. The way a law student reads. Without emotion. Only with logic. And he understood. Richard Mercer was not just a lawyer. He was the legal advisor for an Irish organization called the Anvil. He designed money laundering structures. He created fake contracts. He built legal shields to block investigations. For more than 10 years, while Eden studied contract law at Harvard, his father had been writing a very different kind of contract. And on the very last page of the document bundle, there was a name. V. Kahlo. Eden stared at that name for a long time. Outside, the Boston night wind knocked against the window. Eden closed the documents and shut the drawer. He turned off the light in the study. He had not decided anything yet, but something inside him was quietly changing direction, like the needle of a compass, without a sound. It took Eden 2 days to go find Maya Tran. To be exact, it took 2 days to make up his mind. Finding her address took less than 3 hours. She was in the same year at Harvard Law School. In their first year, they took the same constitutional law class and worked together once on a team project. She dropped out after 2 months. She didn't tell the school why. Back then, Eden didn't wonder why she left. Now it was different. Near the border between Cambridge and Somerville, There was an old apartment building. 3rd floor. The room at the end of the hall. Eden knocked. A moment later, he heard sounds inside. A chair moving. Footsteps. Then silence. She was looking through the peephole. The door opened. Maya Tran was 1 year younger than Eden. 24. Vietnamese American. Short hair, glasses, several hairbands on her wrist. Her eyes looked like she hadn't slept much. She looked Eden up and down and said, "I saw the obituary. Sorry about your father. Can I come in?" Is that a question or a request? A request. Maya opened the door a little wider. Inside the room there were 3 monitors. On the desk, empty instant noodle cups and a pile of notes. Nothing on the walls. Maya sat in her chair and crossed her arms. Eden stood. "I heard you left your FBI internship." "I didn't really leave. I walked out myself." "Why?" "What are you doing now?" Maya looked at him for a second. "Information brokering. I find things people want to know. Some of it is legal. Some isn't. That's why I didn't stay in law school." Eden took a piece of paper from his pocket. He had hand-copied it from one of the documents he found in his father's study. Vincent Kahlo, an Italian organization connecting Boston and New York. The Kahlo family. Maya took the paper and read it. Her expression shifted, just a little. "I know what this is. I know. And you still brought it to me. I still brought it to you." Maya put the paper on the desk and turned on a monitor. A black window appeared on the screen. Her fingers went up to the keyboard, then stopped. "Eden, tell me honestly, why did you bring this to me?" Eden was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My father died because of the Kahlo family. The police called it a robbery, and that'll be the end of it. I don't want that." "You're thinking of fighting it in court?" "That's what I thought at first." "At first?" "Yes." Maya looked at him for a long time. Then she started typing. It took 3 days. Maya barely left the room during those 3 days. Eden stayed at a nearby motel and came by every morning. What Maya found was in pieces, but when you put the pieces together, a picture formed. In the early 2000s, the Kahlo family had their eyes on the cargo shipping routes around Boston Harbor. The Anvil controlled those routes. The tension between the two groups was growing that spring, and Richard Mercer stepped in as a middleman. He had legal ties to both sides, so he could stand in a neutral position. The negotiations went on for over 3 months. Then they fell apart. The CCTV footage Maya found came from a convenience store camera near Boston Harbor. The quality was poor, but it was clear. The last person Richard Mercer met. Short hair, tall, a ring on the left hand. Maya tracked down who that person was. Frank Serra, 35 years old, the operations chief of the Kahlo family. Vincent Kahlo's right-hand man. Eden stared at the monitor and said nothing. Maya asked, "What are you going to do now?" Eden said after a moment, "Could we win in court? This has no value as evidence. The source isn't clear, and think about how I got that convenience store footage. And do you know how many judges and prosecutors the Kahlo family controls in the Boston area?" "How many?" 3 that I confirmed. Eden leaned back in his chair. Through the window, he could see the gray sky over Somerville. Late October in Boston. The street trees had lost all their leaves and stood like bare skeletons. Eden made his decision right there. No big moment of drama. Like a law student, he looked at the evidence and reached a conclusion. He could not win by fighting inside the law. The law itself belonged to the other side. Then he had to go outside of it. The next morning, Eden knocked on the door of his faculty advisor at Harvard Law, Professor Andrew Hartman. Hartman was a gentle man in his early 60s. White hair, thick glasses, always in a tweed jacket. When Eden walked in, he looked over his glasses and offered him a chair. "Mercer, I'm truly sorry about your father. The school has put you on a 1-month leave. If you need more time, just say so." "Thank you, Professor. That's actually not why I'm here." Hartman put down his teacup. "I'm going to leave school." The office went quiet. Hartman took off his glasses and cleaned them, slowly choosing his words. "You're in shock right now. For big decisions, maybe give it a little more time." "I've already given it time. I've decided." "Eden, you're..." "Professor." Eden cut him off, gently but clearly. "Thank you. I learned a lot from you. I mean that." Hartman looked at Eden for a long moment, as if trying to read something. Eden didn't change his expression. "Get the withdrawal form from the administration office." Eden stood up and reached out his hand. Hartman took it and said, "Come back when you want to come back. Your place will be here." Eden smiled. Then he opened the office door and walked out. Walking down the hall, he took out his phone. The business card he got at the funeral. Sean Doherty. Just a phone number, no job title. Eden dialed. It rang twice, then someone answered. "Doherty. This is Eden Mercer. Please teach me." There was a short silence on the other end. Then Doherty said, "Where are you right now?" "Cambridge." "In 2 hours. McGee's Bar in South Boston. You know it? Come and we'll talk." The call ended. Eden put his phone in his pocket and kept walking. Through Harvard Yard, past the main gate, out onto Massachusetts Avenue. The late autumn wind was cold. Eden buttoned his coat and didn't slow down. He had wanted to become a judge. Now he had decided to deliver a different kind of verdict. McGee's Bar had no sign. At the far end of D Street in South Boston. Underground, in a brick building. You walked down some stairs and there was a heavy wooden door. When you opened it, the smell of cigarette smoke and whiskey hit you first. It was 2 in the afternoon, but it was dark inside. 3 or 4 men sat at the bar, and in the corner seat was Sean Doherty. When Eden walked in, the conversation stopped for a moment. Everyone looked at him. Eden didn't care. He sat down across from Doherty. Doherty was drinking a Guinness. He didn't offer one to Eden. Eden didn't ask for one. "You left law school." "Yes." "Does your mother know?" "Not yet." Doherty put his glass down. "Richard talked about his son a lot. Said you were the best at Harvard. Said you were going to be a judge. That was the plan. Now you want something different." Eden didn't answer. Doherty seemed to take that as a yes. He looked at Eden for a moment, then said, "Just one question. Is revenge the goal, or is there something beyond that?" Eden thought for a second. He decided not to lie. "Right now it's revenge. I'll think about what's beyond that later." Doherty smiled faintly. Not a happy smile, more like the face you make when you get the answer you expected. Richard said the same kind of thing. At first. That touched something inside Eden. Eden didn't change his expression. From that day on, Doherty brought Eden along with him. For the first 2 weeks, he didn't ask Eden to do anything. He just let him be there. He let him sit in on meetings, meet people, and learn the locations. The anvil was far more organized than Eden had imagined. The boss was Patrick Gallagher, early 60s. He never stepped forward himself. Orders always came down through 2 or 3 layers. Doherty was somewhere in the middle. The people in the organization watched Eden carefully. Some said it openly. "What does a law student think he's going to do here?" Eden said nothing. His chance came 3 weeks later. Some of the anvil's money was being laundered through ghost accounts under a logistics company name. The structure had recently come close to being detected by the Federal Financial Crimes Investigation Unit. The organization's finance guy was struggling. Not because he didn't know the methods, he just didn't know how to wrap it legally. Eden said, "Can I take a look?" Doherty nodded at the finance guy. Eden took the documents and sat down. An hour later, he wrote up a restructuring plan by hand. The idea wasn't to just delete the ghost accounts directly. Instead, he layered legitimate consulting contract structures on top to give the money flows a legal-sounding reason. It was something he learned in Professor Hartman's corporate law class. Of course, that class taught it for legal purposes, but still. The finance guy read the papers, and his expression changed. "This can actually work." "Yes." "How long will it take?" 3 days to put the paperwork together. After that, the way people inside the organization looked at Eden changed. The open hostility got smaller. Instead, careful watching began. When Eden talked about the law, people listened. Eden used that as a foothold. A month later, Doherty called Eden aside. "Do you know how to shoot?" "No." "Do you want to learn?" "Yes." Doherty took Eden to a shooting range in Quincy. An indoor range. The staff locked the door for them. Doherty put a Glock 17 on the table. A gun is a tool. No different from a knife or a hammer. Nothing to be scared of. Eden picked it up. It was heavier than he expected. He held it with both hands and got into position. The first shot was far off the target. The second one, too. From the third shot, he got a little closer. Eden analyzed his form the way he used to memorize cases in law school. Where was he shaking? When should he hold his breath? He approached it like a structure, not a feeling. An hour later, 7 out of 10 shots were hitting the target. Doherty watched quietly, then said, "Richard was afraid of guns at first, too." Eden lowered the gun and looked at Doherty. "Did my father learn too?" "He learned because he had to. Never used it, though." Eden turned back toward the target. He pulled the trigger. The 11th shot hit the dead center. But it was also around this time that something inside Eden quietly began to shake. 2 months into life with the organization. One of Doherty's men was a guy named Jimmy Cornell, early 30s, quick-tempered and loud. He went to collect protection money from a bar owner in South Boston, a bar the organization managed. Eden was in the car, too. Riding along was Eden's job at this stage. The bar owner was a man in his 50s, the tired face of an immigrant. He said this month was hard for him. Before he even finished the sentence, Jimmy flipped the table. Bottles broke and the owner fell to the floor. Jimmy stood over him and said coldly, "Next month, bring twice as much." Eden watched it all through the glass from outside. He did nothing. There was nothing he could do. On the way back to the car, Eden looked out the window. He said nothing. Jimmy hummed a little tune. That night, Eden sat in his motel room for a long time. He thought about his father. Richard Mercer knew what this world was, and he worked for it anyway. Before deciding whether that was right or wrong, Eden was starting to understand with his own body what it really meant. The law was a tool. A gun was a tool. What changed the world wasn't the tool, it was the will behind it. And the direction that will point it in was what defined a person. What am I pointing toward? Eden still couldn't answer that question. And that same day, a message came from Maya in Somerville. It was short. I found something important. Come. When Eden arrived at Maya's room, she had all 3 monitors on. The screens were full of numbers and communication records. The moment Eden walked in, she said, "The reason Kahlo killed your father, it wasn't just because the negotiation fell apart." Eden sat down. "Someone sold your father to Kahlo. They told them that he was the Anvil's legal advisor. They shared the organization's internal structure. They explained that without Richard Mercer, the Anvil would be shaken. Someone passed all of this to the Kahlo family." Eden was silent. "There's a traitor on the inside." Outside, the Boston night wind rattled the window. Eden looked at Maya's monitors. Numbers moved across the screens. Somewhere in there was a name he couldn't see yet. Eden said slowly, "Find it." Maya nodded and started typing. Finding the traitor was a lot like questioning a witness in court. The difference was this. In court, if you lie, it's perjury. Here, if you lie, a different kind of consequence follows. Eden understood that difference well enough by now. The communication records Maya tracked split into 3 directions. The first was Declan O'Brien, the Anvil's internal finance manager, a man in his 50s. He had been managing the organization's money for 15 years. He worked closest to Richard Mercer and knew the organization's financial structure better than anyone. He had plenty of reason to betray them. According to the records Maya found, 3 unexplained deposits had been made into his personal account. The amounts weren't large. That was actually what made it suspicious. Big money leaves a trail. Small money, paid multiple times, is hard to catch. The second was Tyrone Shaw, one of Doherty's close associates. Late 30s. African American. Quiet and fast-moving. His main role in the organization was as a messenger, which meant information flowed through him. What Maya dug up was his phone location data. Several times, his location was recorded near a building in the North End connected to the Kahlo family. The third was a name Eden didn't want to bring up himself. His mother, Carolyn Mercer. Maya said it carefully. "I'm only listing her as a possibility. If you want to take her off the list, you can." Eden was quiet for a moment. "Don't take her off. A possibility is a possibility." Maya nodded. Carolyn Mercer may have known something about her husband's double life. What Maya found was a pattern in her phone records, repeated calls to an unregistered number. Not many calls, but the timing was strange. It overlapped with the period when Richard was negotiating with the Kahlo family. Eden closed the file at that part. Let's start with O'Brien. Declan O'Brien lived in Charlestown. A house. He lived alone. Eden moved without telling Doherty. If Doherty knew they were tracking the traitor might find out too. Eden and Maya did it by themselves. Eden found out that every Thursday evening, O'Brien went to an Irish pub near the Charlestown waterfront. That's where he made his first move. Eden sat down in the seat next to him and didn't speak first. He just sat there, through one drink. O'Brien recognized Eden. He must have seen him next to Doherty. He nodded. That was his version of a greeting. When the second drink came, Eden said, I was going through my father's documents and found something odd. O'Brien didn't put his glass down. There's an account that keeps coming up and I can't trace it. I don't know much about finance. Could you help me out? O'Brien looked at Eden. What account? It starts with this routing number. Eden wrote some numbers on a napkin and pushed it over. It was a fake routing number Maya had made up. The account didn't exist, but they had put a specific pattern in it. If O'Brien recognized that pattern, it meant he was familiar with that kind of account structure. O'Brien looked at the napkin and said nothing. Then he smiled. If you want to ask me about something like this, come to the office. This isn't the kind of thing you talk about here. Eden nodded and stood up. Outside, he called Maya. I saw his reaction. He recognized the pattern. He was rattled but hid it. He tried to end the conversation. Are you sure? Not sure yet, but the possibility went up. Maya said, there's movement on Tyrone Shaw's side too. He moved toward the north and this afternoon. Eden thought for a moment. Follow him. Just me. Be careful. Maya hung up. On his way back to the motel, Eden's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Mercer. A low, rough voice. Eden stopped walking. Who is this? That doesn't matter. What matters is that we know what you're looking for, and it would be better for you to stop. Eden looked around. Charlestown streets. Cars passing under the streetlights. Nothing obviously wrong. Is this the Kahlo family calling? There was a short silence on the other end. Stop. The call ended. Eden put his phone in his pocket and started walking again. He quickly changed direction. He went into an alley, went around 2 blocks, and came out again. It was a way to check if anyone was following him. Something Doherty taught him. He didn't stop until he was sure. No one was following, but it was clear that they knew he was moving. Eden texted Maya, I'm safe right now. Be careful. The next day, what Maya found removed Tyrone Shaw from the suspect list. The building in the North End had nothing to do with the Kahlo family. The person Tyrone Shaw was meeting there was his younger sister. She was a tenant in a building managed by the Kahlo family, and Tyrone had no idea. The location record was just a coincidence. The suspects were down to 2. Eden went to see his mother. The house in Beacon Hill. Carolyn was in the living room. Since Richard died, she had been quietly falling apart. A little more each day. Dark under her eyes. Fewer words. Eden sat down next to her. Mom, I need to ask you something about Dad. Carolyn was looking out the window. Did you know what kind of work he was doing? After a long pause, Carolyn said, I didn't know everything. I didn't want to know. But you knew some of it. Carolyn looked at Eden. Her eyes were wet. Eden, what are you trying to do? I need to know. What changes if you know? Something changes. Carolyn looked at her son for a long time. Then, in a small voice, she said, There was someone who used to contact your father. Someone I didn't know. They called often, and your father always went to another room to answer. Once I picked up before him. It was a woman's voice. Eden listened quietly. I asked your father about it. He said it was a client. I didn't ask more. Not asking questions was the rule in our house. Do you remember the number? I don't. It was a long time ago. Eden held his mother's hand for a moment, then let go. He started to stand up, and Carolyn said,
Eden.
Yes. Don't do anything that scares me. Eden didn't answer. He walked out the front door. It wasn't his mother. Eden didn't reach that conclusion by logic. He just knew. What she had known was small and incomplete, and the look in her eyes was the look of someone trying to keep a lid on things, not the look of someone who sold a person out. That left Declan O'Brien. Eden went to Doherty. He told him everything. The account records Maya tracked. O'Brien's reaction. The phone call from the Kahlo family. Doherty listened all the way to the end. Then he sat there for a long time without saying anything. Declan's been with us for 15 years. I know. You could be wrong. The deposit records Maya found aren't wrong. Doherty looked out the window. His lips pressed tight. Eden said, "There's a way to confirm it. We feed O'Brien false information. Something only we know. If it leaks to the Kahlo family side, we have our answer." Doherty looked at Eden. For a long time. Do they teach this in law school? Interrogation techniques came from evidence law class. The rest I came up with myself. Doherty gave a short laugh. Then he nodded. Eden fed the false information to O'Brien directly. The AMPA was planning to move goods from a specific warehouse at Boston Harbor next Tuesday. It was completely made up. Not a real plan. Tuesday. Eden and Doherty waited near that warehouse. 10 p.m. 2 cars appeared. Kahlo family people. They walked around in front of the empty warehouse for a while, then left. Doherty said nothing. Eden said nothing either. The necessary words were already finished. Eden didn't see directly what happened to O'Brien. Doherty handled it. Eden didn't ask. He didn't want to know. There was a line he was trying not to cross yet. He didn't know how long that line would hold. And 2 days later, a message came from Maya. Her voice was different. Not tense, a different kind of feeling. Eden, I found Frank Serra. I got a fix on his movements. He's in Boston right now. Eden felt his hand tighten around the phone. His father's face came to him. His father, who said the law was the language of the powerful, who had used that language in a completely different way, and who paid the price for it. Eden said quietly, "Where's Sarah?" Frank Serra was staying at a quiet hotel in the North End. The trail Maya followed was simple. Sarah's license plate had been caught twice on parking enforcement cameras in downtown Boston. Maya traced it backward and found the hotel. The check-in name was fake, but the credit card payment pattern matched Sarah's. Maya was good at that kind of work. Connecting dots. Finding lines that weren't visible. Eden received the information and didn't move for 2 days. Doherty asked, "What are you waiting for?" "To be ready." "Ready for what?" Eden didn't answer. The truth was Eden was fighting with himself. Every night, staring at the motel room's ceiling. What would he do with Frank Serra? That was the problem. From the night his father died, Eden had thrown everything away and entered this world for one reason: revenge. But now that the target was within reach, Eden felt what he wanted getting blurry. Killing Sarah. Was that revenge? Would the world go back to before his father died? Would Richard Mercer come back? Nothing comes back. Even if Sarah dies, Vincent Kahlo is still alive. The Kahlo family stays the same. The power structure around Boston Harbor doesn't change. Eden knew that. When he analyzed it the way he learned in law school, that's what came out. Removing Sarah is revenge, not a solution. And Eden wanted a solution. On the morning of the 3rd day, Eden called Maya. "How deep can you dig into the Kahlo family's money laundering structure?" Maya was quiet for a moment, then said, How far do you need? Far enough to hand over to the FBI anonymously. That'll take time. How long? 10 days if things go well. A month if they don't. Start. Eden hung up and went to find Doherty. Doherty was at McGee's bar. Eden sat across from him and said, "I'm not going to Sarah directly." Doherty put down his glass. "Taking down Kahlo comes first. Sarah is after that." How do you take down Kahlo? Eden explained what he had prepared. 2 parts. First, Maya would dig up the Kahlo family's money laundering structure and send it to the FBI as an anonymous tip. If the evidence was strong enough, a federal investigation would begin. The Kahlo family would be legally tied up and the organization would shake. Second, push for internal division. There was a power struggle inside the Kahlo family, too. Sarah was Kahlo's right-hand man, but there were people inside who wanted to check Sarah's power. The plan was to drive a wedge into that crack. Doherty showed no expression the whole time he listened. When Eden finished, Doherty asked, "An FBI tip? That could come back on us, too." "I know. That's why the tip has to be limited to the Kahlo family's information only. Maya can separate that out." "Are you sure?" "Not completely, but this is the cleanest way." Doherty thought for a long time. Eden waited. "I have to report to Gallagher." "Please do." They met Patrick Gallagher 2 days later. Doherty brought Eden. Gallagher was in a back office behind a grocery warehouse in Brookline. A man who looked older than his age. His white shirt sleeves were rolled up, and he was looking at papers. When Eden walked in, he looked over his glasses. "So you're Richard's son?" "Yes." "Do you take after him?" "I don't know." Gallagher gave a short laugh. "Not the kind that comes from enjoying a joke. The kind that reads a person." Eden explained the plan again to Gallagher. Gallagher didn't interrupt. He listened to the end. Then he asked just one thing. "If the FBI tip bounces back on us?" "Maya will build a structure that makes the source untraceable. It won't be perfect, but she'll plant people inside the Kahlo family who could plausibly be suspected first." "Be specific." "Someone inside the Kahlo family who has a conflict with Sarah. We make it look like that person sent the tip. If Kahlo suspects an internal betrayal, the organization shakes from the inside first." Gallagher placed his hands on the desk. There was an old scar on the back of his hand. "Richard handled legal documents. You used the law as a weapon." Eden said nothing. Gallagher said, "Do it." Maya got it done in 12 days. The Kahlo family's money laundering structure ran through 3 layers, a laundromat chain in New Jersey, a real estate developer in Florida, and 3 ghost funds in the Cayman Islands. Maya put the whole flow into documents. Account numbers, transaction dates, amounts, recipients. It was the kind of material the FBI could actually use to open a real investigation. And Maya did one more thing. She made the name of Antonio Ricci, a mid-level officer who had a long-running conflict with Sarah inside the Kahlo family, appear naturally around the edges of the tip documents. She didn't point to him directly. She just structured it so that the information in the documents was the kind he could have accessed. When Kahlo found out about the tip, the direction his suspicion would turn had already been set. Eden submitted the documents anonymously to the Boston FBI field office. He didn't go in person. It went through 3 steps. The documents were sent through a virtual fax number Maya created. Untraceable. Then they waited. 5 days passed. Maya succeeded in picking up parts of internal FBI communications. A signal came through that an investigation had started. It was confirmed that federal agents had shown up at two of the New Jersey laundromat chains connected to the Kahlo family. And 2 days after that, movement inside the Kahlo family. When Maya tracked Sarah's vehicle location again, Sarah had left the hotel. He had been urgently called to Kahlo's base from the North End. The Kahlo family had gone into internal lockdown. What happened to Antonio Ricci was unknown. Eden didn't try to find out. The organization was starting to fall apart on its own. And that night, Sarah moved again. A text from Maya came. Sarah's vehicle heading towards South Boston. Eden had a feeling he knew why. Sarah must have been in a position where he needed to prove something to Kahlo. When the organization is shaking, when an FBI investigation starts, when suspicion of betrayal is going around, there was one thing the operations chief could do: create a visible result. The fact that Eden was connected to the anvil was already known on Kahlo's side. Sarah was coming to deal with Eden. Eden called Doherty. Sarah is moving. I know. Where are you? He's turning toward the South Boston warehouse area. Don't be there. We'll handle it. Eden was quiet for a moment. I'll go alone. Mercer. Doherty. That's where my father died. On the other end, Doherty breathed out slowly. We'll be there in 20 minutes. Finish it before then. Eden hung up and headed to South Boston, the warehouse near the harbor, the place he had first come 2 months ago. The night the yellow tape had been stretched across the entrance. Now there was nothing there. Eden stood in the alley across from the warehouse entrance, in the dark. About 10 minutes later, a car stopped. The headlights went off. A door opened and a man stepped out. Eden recognized the face from the dark. The face Maya had found from the CCTV footage. Frank Serra. Serra checked his surroundings in front of the warehouse. Then he looked toward the alley. His eyes met Eden's. Serra walked over slowly. His hand moved inside his coat. Eden moved too. The two men faced each other in the open lot in front of the warehouse. One streetlight far away cast a thin light. Serra said, "So you're Richard's son." "That's right." "Why are you here?" Eden didn't answer. He wrapped his hand around the Glock in his pocket. He hadn't taken it out yet. Serra drew his gun first. Eden drew his too. The two men aimed at each other. The lot was quiet. From the harbor side, the sound of waves came from far away. Serra said, "A kid holding a gun. I thought it would feel heavy, but you get used to it." "Can you shoot?" Eden looked at Serra, his finger on the trigger. His heart was beating fast, but his hand wasn't shaking. At that moment, Eden heard his father's voice in his head. Law is the language of the powerful. The person who learns that language first wins. Richard Mercer knew that language, but used it the wrong way. He stood on the side of the powerful and became a tool for those even more powerful. And tools are thrown away when they're no longer useful. Eden knew what he was about to do, and he knew how it was different from his father's way. Eden said, "Mr. Serra, you are currently under FBI investigation. Evidence of the Kahlo family's money laundering has already been submitted. Agents have raided 2 laundromats in New Jersey, and the process of freezing the Cayman accounts is underway. Kahlo will throw you away. The operations chief is always thrown away first." Sarah's eyes shifted, just slightly. "Kahlo probably told you to find the internal traitor, but the traitor isn't who you think it is. You came all the way to Boston to catch the wrong person, and while you've been doing that, the FBI has been looking at Kahlo's accounts. Sarah said nothing. He didn't lower his gun. Eden continued. You killed my father. That fact doesn't change. But I'm not going to pull the trigger on you. Why? Because killing you is revenge, not a settlement. As long as Kahlo is alive, nothing changes. If you die, Kahlo just makes another Frank Sarah. Sarah looked at Eden for a long time. Then what do you want? Eden slowly lowered his gun. You testify against Kahlo. In front of the FBI. The Kahlo family's chain of command. The path orders came down, the money flows. Everything you know. In return, your safety will be decided by a federal prosecutor, not by me, but at least that's a better choice than being thrown away by Kahlo. The lot was quiet. Sarah was still aiming at Eden. Eden stood there with his gun lowered. His heart was beating, but he didn't move his feet. Sarah lowered his gun. Slowly. Then he put it back inside his coat. He said nothing. He just turned and walked to his car. Got in. Closed the door. Eden watched the car and saw that it didn't move. It just sat there. 10 minutes later, Doherty and the organization's people arrived. Sarah's car was still in the same spot. Doherty stood next to Eden. What happened? We're waiting. For what? For him to make his choice. Doherty looked at Eden. Then he said nothing and stood beside him. 2 days later, Frank Sarah walked into the Boston FBI field office on his own, with a lawyer, stating his intention to cooperate. 1 month after that, Vincent Kahlo was indicted in federal court. Money laundering, organized crime, solicitation of murder. 12 counts listed on the indictment alone. Eden watched that news on the motel room television. The news anchor read it calmly. Footage rolled of Kahlo in handcuffs being walked into the courthouse. Eden watched it all the way to the end without changing the channel. Then he turned off the television. Outside the window, winter had come to Boston. No snow, but the sky was hanging low. Wind was blowing in from the harbor. Eden put on his coat and went outside. He walked to the South Boston waterfront. The cold wind hit his face. Waves crashed against the seawall. Eden stood there for a while. He thought about his father, Richard Mercer, a man who believed he knew the language of the powerful, but was in the end swallowed by that language. Eden had used the same language in a different way. Not with a gun, but with structure. Not with emotion, but with logic. Whether that was the right way, Eden still didn't know. But he knew he had not become a killer. He didn't know if that was enough. Footsteps came from behind. It was Sean Doherty. He stood next to Eden and looked at the sea. The two men said nothing for a while. Doherty spoke first. Will you stay in this world? Eden looked at the waves. I still don't know. Richard said the same thing at first. I know. Doherty didn't say more. Eden didn't either. The winter wind of Boston Harbor passed between the two men. Eden put his hand in his pocket. His fingers touched the cold grip of the Glock, then let go. He turned and started walking. He didn't know yet where he was going, but he didn't stop walking. That was all Eden Mercer could do right now.